I'm really excited to bring you the upcoming interview with a very special guest. You'll hear her discussing all the great and courageous work that she is currently engaged in. And if you feel inspired to help her with these efforts, please consider making a donation earmarked for her projects. Or feel free to give a general donation that will support the wider movement in Myanmar. Our ongoing support is so helpful and appreciated by the Burmese people during these dark days. Simply go to insightmyanmar.org/donation to contribute today. Or stay tuned to the end of the episode to hear more options. Now, let's hear from that guest herself. I'm here today talking to a researcher for civil servants reform working for an international organization based in Yangon. So I'd like to thank you for joining us on what is already a late night for you. I'm sure it was a full day. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and talk to our audience.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to talk here.
Yeah, so before we get into a bit about what you've been doing the last month and a half, I'd like to learn a little about you. Actually, I know about you. We've been friends for some time, but I would like my audience to know a little bit about you. So, could you share a bit about whatever you're comfortable in telling about your background?
Yeah, so uh, I work for civil service reform since 2012. Before the coup, uh, before this policy research work, mostly I'm working on the policy research, but civil service policy research. And before this policy research work, I work for the community organization. I founded that organization in working for the women and youth in Yangon and also across Myanmar.
I know that doing all this work before you were able to get into some of the organizations and initiatives you're leading, you were also involved in different kinds of training and educational programs to get to that point. What kinds of educational and training courses did you take in your development for doing this work?
I've been giving trainings to civil servants across the departments um, in in Union Civil Service Board and also different departments training institute. And also I have programs with my community organizations. I have program for the youth empowerment, youth capacity building. So we have this youth development program, youth training. That's 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 the training I deliver to other people. Uh, for me, I also for my capacity, I also uh, um, receive the different trainings. I mean, like these days, mostly online training. I got mostly online learning a lot these days. But previously, I went to the U.S. American Center or the and also the U.S. For my master degree.
Right. Thanks for that. And training is quite a big word. It probably means different things to different people. And you've been involved in this profession both as a participant and then on the other side as a trainer in many different programs and capacities and initiatives. So, from your perspective, can you describe to you and to the work you've done what is training? What does it mean to be a trainer?
Because we need information. We need information and knowledge. So mostly, I believe that trainer is like a teacher, sharing knowledge and 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 experiences to other people. So, um, for example, this civil servants training, I talk about the local governance, local governance issue in different countries, international experiences. They want to know about it and how to apply back in their work. So that's what we are uh, uh, doing, training to them. That's what I share about the international local governance experience to them. So that's what I do for the training, and also it's similar to the youth capacity. Also, it's the same but different topic. For youth, it's more like the leadership or uh, yeah, the like scholarship or information sharing. But for the civil service, it's more like the a specific subject for the public administration or public policy.
Right. Thanks for that. And that's really helpful to know about the objectives that you're trying to achieve in different training programs and courses and with different groups. And it sounds quite active. I'm also curious about your belief in methodology as a trainer. So, as you're leading these different training programs in different sectors, to different organizations, to different people, and obviously with different objectives, is there like a general training methodology that you learned or that you believe in or that you try to implement through your training experiences and sessions that you lead?
Yeah, definitely. Mostly my participants are adults. I mean, like civil servants. They are even older than me. They have more experience, more working experience than me. So I my training methodology is mostly the experiential learning. So I have to extract their knowledge first. We use a lot of discussion. uh, that's I got feedback from civil servants a lot. They never got the discussion type training. Mostly they are like lecture type training. So for me, I prefer discussion type. So they have to discuss about their experiences first, and I will ex- from their experiences we discuss again. So that's kind of training method I'm doing, mostly discussion and sharing experiences, and also case study.
Right, that's interesting. So that brings us into a contrast with what might be considered the traditional Myanmar style of training that sounds like it's different from what you've learned and what you've done. So, can you describe what would be the traditional or standard type of Myanmar training that would happen in sessions like these? And what is it that you're doing that is different from that?
For Myanmar, you know, we 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 are used to this lecture oriented type. So uh, within a class there are like 70 or 80 participants, and only one lecture talk about the subject. No more discussion, no more sharing from the participants. Only lecturers talk about the subject, and then participants have to memorize the subject and write this memorization in the exam. That's how they pass all through the education. That they pass the universities, they pass the high school. So for the civil servants colleges, I give training. I I use this discussion type training, and so they gave me feedback. This is their first time to discuss about their experiences. The other lecturers also use the same this lecture oriented type, because the other lecturers came from different universities. They are professors, mostly they are professors, not like me. So mostly the Myanmar traditional professors came to the civil servants college to deliver them training. and they didn't also provide the discussion, only just lecture. So for me, I prefer more like international training style. And so case study, I use a lot of case study and discussion. That's why they gave me feedback. They really like my training and to talk about their experiences during my lecture, during my training.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. And I think this is important to talk a little bit about before we get into the current events that are happening now, because the more that we understand how you're approaching education and training, the better we'll be equipped to look at what you're doing now and its effectiveness. And as I hear you say that, I'm curious, you obviously come from a traditional Burmese style of education. That's how you were trained and how you learned growing up. And that is still the model that is commonly seen today. And yet, when you are leading trainings, you are not following that model. You are doing something, you are going into a traditional environment, but you are doing a very non traditional type of session. And you are having the participants uh, discuss and share their background knowledge so that they're talking to each other instead of everything coming from you. You mentioned how you use case studies, you have experiential learning. So, and what you're not doing is lecturing. So, I'm curious because you've had experience with both these types of models and you're obviously preferring one type over another, what is it about this other model, this we can call it non-traditional model, at least in the Burmese educational and training system? What is it about this model that you find effective and that makes you want to use it in these types of training sessions?
Um, I think it's because of the adult learning style. Adults do not want to memorize anymore. And also, for civil servants, mostly they are older than me. And also they have more experience, working experiences. So usually I deliver lecture to the Deputy Director General. So they are like over 40, 45 or at most 50. So most of them are older and they have more experiences. But the only thing, so I don't want to give them lecture like traditional style. Traditional style is so boring, and also I don't want them to make memorize. So I just I want them to learn from each other. For civil servants, for civil servants, training, different departments, civil servants from different departments came, and it is good to have discussion among them so they understand each other about their department's problem. So I think that's why I use that model for the civil servants.
Right, okay, yeah, that's interesting. And you've mentioned that you've been involved even before the coup quite a bit with civil servants reform, training civil servants, bringing civil servants together from different departments, not to lecture them, but to have them learn from each other and facilitate that learning in small group discussion. Can you share a little bit more about what work you've been doing regarding this civil servant reform?
um, yeah, I I am I'm the trainer uh, of the civil service capacity development. So I deliver training for the Union Civil Servants Board and also different departments, institution in Naypyidaw and also in Yangon. And also I wrote some reports on the institutions, the department, and their process for the institutional reform.
Right, and can you tell us a bit more about what that kind of reform was that you were seeking?
So it's more like local government reforms and also like the service delivery reform, like municipal governments reform, and also what village administration reform and public financial management reform. So that's all the reforms I'm working.
Right, that certainly seems like a handful, and how has that work been going prior to February 1st?
I mean, my interest is public administration, so I'm mostly working on the local governments reform and also public administration reform. The the administration reform. but I also, it's all connected. I mean, like the different reforms, like economic reform, administration reform, all are intertwined. Because my area is civil service reform, so I have to meet all the servants from different departments, like budget department or the municipal department or general administration department. So I have to learn a little from each department from them to deliver trainings to them.
Now, of course, the focus on civil servants is in the top of the news. So many people are curious about these departments and these people. You've had experience working there for years before it became this, what's now an international focus. So, can you share a bit about, and I'm talking here about before February 1st, your extensive experience with civil servants and in these different departments? Can you give a certain kind of description or flavor for what you saw of the people you worked with, what your goals were, and reforms you were trying to seek, and how some of these discussions and work was being carried out?
Before the coup, I had a very positive look. I mean, outlook for them. I mean, for the public sector reform, we tried very hard for like less 8 years since 2012, because I joined this work in 2012. So uh, like less 5 years during the NLD government term, there were many progress of the civil servants, especially the capacity training programs. So many capacity trainings, and also um, civil service benefits, and also pension, and also, I mean, like the general administration department moved from the home affair, the military control home affair, to the civilian side, union government office. So all these positive progress made me really, motivated for this country public sector reform, public administration reform before the coup. So I had very positive feeling for the next government before the coup.
Right. So you've basically been working with civil servants for almost 10 years, and you've been working with them as the government has changed through the last decade. And with your work and the way things were going, you were really quite hopeful and optimistic in the changes and the direction of the reforms that you were seeing.
Yes, yes, that's correct. Yes.
Mm, right, I see. So that brings us closer to where we are now and what's happened recently. Can you describe, if you remember those days, it wasn't so long ago, but they were quite challenging for all of us, what you were doing, what your reaction was just in the first couple days and the first week after the coup took place?
I was so shocked because I had a very, I mean, very big dream. I mean, like for this public sector reform, and also very optimistic about the government to improve the country. So when the coup happened, suddenly it was really shock for me, and I couldn't handle it. I mean, many civil servants also called me and asked me what happened. They also don't understand. They didn't understand what happened. So I also don't know how to explain to them. And they many of us are very frustrated about that the coup, and we can feel. I mean, we can stand with it. Yeah.
Right, and so after it happened, you and many of your civil servants you were in touch with were quite shocked. What were those discussions like in the early days?
I mean, for the first week, we just shocked, and we didn't know what to do. But then um, people start to think about the boycott. Uh, civil servants think about the boycott. They don't want to work for the military, so they called me and they told me they don't want to work. So I also told them, yeah, okay, then we start to boycott the government, the military, the regime. We start to boycott the regime. That's we started to discuss, yeah, and different. different civil servants from different departments. They called me and they asked me, um, uh, you know, about their feelings. They told me about their feelings and told me about their situation in the department, and how they are. They felt very rigid, yeah, very rigid, and the military, because the military totally controlled them, you know. So like all their ministers suddenly disappear, they were arrested, and then many deputy ministers were arrested. So they're also very sad about the situation. So that's all our reaction to the coup.
Right, I can't imagine that. So, these people that are just civil servants going to work, suddenly their ministers are gone, disappeared. They don't know their status or their direction or their boss, and everyone's trying to figure out what to do, and eventually that leads to this boycott and this CDM. But in looking at the genesis of that movement, were there several people that you know of that were kind of leading the thought that this was possible and encouraging others to make it a movement and join, or was it just kind of a general sentiment that many people felt at the same time and just organically among the masses started to take shape at the same time?
It's everyone, I can say that, you know. So like different departments, I mean, like different I talked to different civil servants. They all are like, yeah, I mean, like even in this movement, young people are very active, like Generation Z, and also I'm Generation Y, you know, not too much young like them, but in the civil servants also, they are the same. Generation Z civil servants are very active not to work for the regime, and so they started, and not they don't have the leader, you know. They are like they know it, they have to do it themselves, so they leave the work themselves, so nobody asks them to do, they just do it. So I think it's like everybody participate in this movement, not like one leader, not like leaders, not like we are following the leaders. It's like we are doing ourselves to fight the regime.
Right. So take me back to those early days when these ideas and this feeling of not wanting to go to work started to form. I mean, it must have been so new. It's like, what form does the boycott take, and how do the workers become safe, and who decides to leave, and where do they go? So, what were some of the early considerations and conversations that you were having at that point?
I talked to civil servants and they told me they don't want to go to work, so they just start to take leave from the work. They they submitted the leave form. They submitted and then they don't go. They didn't announce it like CDM. CDM movement is later, but at the earlier stages, it's more like the leave. They submitted the leave from their work.
I see. So, were a lot of people just on their own, just casually taking leave on their own, and those numbers just started to grow? Is that what happened?
Yes, yes, it happened like that. Yeah.
Right, and then how did that casual individual leave taking morph into what became a movement of CDM? How did that transition take place?
It's after the doctors boycott, the medical doctors boycott, calling for the CDM. So all many civil servants joined it. Before that, doctors boycott. People start to take leave. Civil servants start to take leave from the work.
Right, and then what was your role in all of this as you were talking to civil servants that you had trained about their individual leave taking, and then as the doctors then called on a wider movement and people started to look at joining, what was your role throughout this?
I'm just helping them. So I know many of this. I know many of them because of my training experiences with them. We are very, I mean, we are very friendly. They can share with me what happened to them easily. So they call me just like their teacher, and they ask me for suggestion, what to do, how to take leave. I also study about the civil servants law, so they ask me how to take leave, you know, and so this thing, you know, and also the consequences of the CDM movement, what will happen next if they got the fire, or if they got the if they don't get they don't get the salaries, things like that. They have to give back to their houses or cars. So many people ask me for suggestions. What? Especially the laws, the civil servants law. They ask me specifically about this, the articles of the law and how to accuse them if they don't go to the work.
Right, and so they're coming to you for advice. I can't imagine the position that put you in because on one hand, you're advising people whose actual very lives and family and livelihood and everything are dependent and affected on the advice you're giving them, and yet on the other hand, this is one of the most, if not the most effective movements that's taking place to resist the coup, and so you have to balance these competing interests. So how did you manage how to give guidance on this very sensitive topic?
It's a very complicated situation. Mostly, they trust me, so I can explain to them well. And also, I got some help from my international lawyers friend. They give me advice about the civil servants law. The specifically questions the civil servants asked me about the CDM. So I got suggestion from this international lawyer, and then I I help them. I give them feedback according to their suggestion. So and then the civil servants trust me. That's what I'm working in. Many they recommend each other about me. So people start talking about me to get advice in the civil servant cycle.
I see, right. And what are some of the dangers or consequences of those civil servants who decide to join the boycott and to not go to work at this time?
It's a very, very, like huge, tremendous risk for them. I mean, at first they got threatened. One civil servant girl, she got threatened to lock up inside her house, not to leave the compound, because she lived in the government compound. Mostly the civil servants live in the government compound, government housing. So the first violence was not to leave the house, and also they got pressure from the director, the deputy director general or director general to come back to work, and also they got shaming. They got blamed when they went to the office. They got shaming in front of everyone, like swearing them and assaulting them. And also they are threatened to send them to the military council. So the military council also check the Facebook page of every civil servant. And so there are also some there are non-CDM people who work for the military government. Some of them reported to the DDG or DG to get promotion, or they got many incentives to report to this CDM people. So they report everything about this CDM people, like even Facebook writing or Facebook posts. They report it, whatever they do. So they got very insecure, very unsafe experience, very traumatic. Many people, especially young girls called me crying how they got bullied and shamed in front of everyone and threatened. And another thing is uh, uh, many problem. I mean, financial problem. The civil servants' salaries are uh, are low, are lower for the lower ranks people, lower rank civil servant. So in this movement, in this CDM movement, most of the civil servants are lower ranks. I mean, for the DG, DDG, and director, these up, upper three layers, they don't boycott that much. Only just very few, 1 or 2% boycott. But under them, like deputy director, assistant director level, and staff officer and clerk, mostly clerks boycott. So clerks' salaries are very poor. And so they don't even have the money to travel back to their towns because they are very worried to stay in the department, to stay in their house. So they want to go back to their town, and they ask me for the travel allowance. So that's kind of thing I'm arranging to help them travel allowance and giving them advice.
Right. So it sounds like they're in the middle of this really difficult battle that on one hand their Facebook posts are being checked and they're being pressured by their department to come to work, and there's this carrot that they're luring them with of promising promotions and other kinds of benefits, and they're in government housing on top of all that. And then on the other side, there's a whole movement that is wanting them to resist. And perhaps if they see them going to their offices, they're engaging in social public shaming that they're continuing to work, and a lot of pressure is being put on them with their name and face and Facebook account associated with it for them to take a stand. So, is this a correct understanding that these younger, lower level civil servants are in the middle of this incredible tension on either side, this push and pull on these two different competing interests that are trying to put pressure on them to go to work or not go to work?
Yes, and also the family. Another pressure is from the family because families are very scared, and also mostly civil servants families rely on their salary. Only when um, a person work in the family, so the whole family rely on them, and so that's happened, and then they are worried they they would be fired and no more salaries in this difficult time. So they are very worried about that, and families pressure them to go back to work. So yeah, many young people face that situation too, from the family pressure, not only from department. But later, family joy after the mass killing of the regime. Families don't them to pressure to go back to work. Now everybody feel unsafe now, so the families don't pressure them anymore.
Right, right. That's interesting. I want to go back to this idea of social shaming because this has been a kind of controversial activity that we've seen in the past several weeks of the protest movement, where there's been, and to explain to people who aren't familiar with it, it's this initiative to identify not just the people, but also the family members of people that are in any way supporting the regime. And that, as you mentioned, that could include younger civil servants who are still continuing to go to work, as well as their family members, that they're being bullied or harassed on the way to the office, that their name and details and family is being shared publicly as a means of putting pressure on them to join the movement and to not go to work. So, what do you think about this social shaming taking place?
In the office, there are two groups now: CDM people and non-CDM people. They don't trust each other anymore, and they shame each other. You know, they shame each other. It's bigger and bigger. so so it's like, for non-CDM people, the CDM people shame them. They go to work. They work for the regime. They work for this. We call like Burma. Burma is like the military, putting the military higher. So that's from CDM people side. For non-CDM people side, they shame like, these civil servants are not good people, not follow the government rule, violate the rule and laws. They're going to be arrested. They are criminals. they are shaming. So each that's the two groups fighting, and they post on online both sides. I saw it on both sides, but many people treat it through the hashtag. So most punishment from the most social punishment from the CDM side are stronger because of all many million people attack same time with the hashtag.
Right, right. So it is coming from both sides. I guess I'm curious, as someone that is supporting the CDM movement, do you think this is an effective strategy to be used to encourage civil
Um,
servants to not go to work?
for younger people, yes, I think both sides have trauma. I mean, for this shaming thing, it's really traumatic for both sides. For both sides, the target is also the DG level and the minister level. We make them shaming, but I prefer for that level, the minister and DG and DDG level, director level. They definitely need they have to suffer the shaming. But for the younger civil servants, it's uh, it's very difficult for them. I feel it's very difficult, very traumatic. Yeah, not to join the CDM movement. Even I talk one non-CDM doctor, medical doctor today. She is still working for the hospital in Naypyidaw, and she told me she is saving lives of the protester in Naypyidaw lives. If she is doing CDM, she cannot save the lives of the people. So I understand her. She has to work, and I understand her. She's not joining the CDM, but people don't like her. People accuse her like she is doing still working for the regime. So it's very difficult for them to handle.
Right. And one of the ways I've heard it described is that the people have so little and the military has so many resources and tools and is prepared to use them cruelly that this public shaming is one of the tools they do have to try to fight back. But we do see instances where it's causing trauma and it might not be so effective. And I've heard other people argue this is not the society we really want to build as we're looking to create something new. So, as someone in your position who's been following this and advising and taking an active role, if there is an alternative to this kind of public shaming of lower level younger civil servants, what other tools would you encourage to be used
Mm.
at this time?
It is very difficult to say because this is like the timing. This is the movement is more like timing movement. So social punishment is like let's treat let's I mean 2 weeks ago. I mean like um, not like starting from the movement, but in the middle of the movement, like late January, late February, uh, something like that. So, and the problem is the hatred between two groups now. So that's in the anger and the emotion. So the expression way is only through this shaming. But uh, for the better way, I prefer more like mobilizing and talking and discussion. But the challenge is they don't talk anymore. The non-CDM people don't talk to other people anymore. So that's why shaming is um, the only thing they do. I think.
Mhm. Right. I want to look at the CDM movement wider in scope, civil disobedience movement. And there might be some listeners that are only casually following what's going on, and they're looking at the protest and the violence and everything else. They're trying to understand how everything fits together. So let's just talk about the role of CDM specifically, the importance of that for people that don't have a strong understanding of what CDM is doing or why it's important. Can you explain why the emphasis on CDM? What is it accomplishing now? What is its goal in the future? Why is CDM important for the overall resistance taking place to the coup?
CDM is I think the most important, not to kill the people anymore, because CDM movement is the civil servants boycott, not to work for the military regime. So every department's closed, every departments do not function. The regime cannot operate the country. So that's why we are working on that. They are now killing the people. If we go outside, we are sure we got killed. So, but the civil servants, if the civil servants are not working, they cannot operate. They cannot manage the country. They cannot say they got the power. So that's what we are doing that for that, and CDM is very successful. Uh, I can explain from the I mean, like from the administrative perspective, administration side. For the public administration, the village level administration is the most important in Myanmar. We have like more than 30,000 villages, and the village administrator is most important. And the regime wants to remove the old administrator and replace with the new military control administrator. Public do not accept it, and so that's the village administration system failed, and the village clerk. The clerk is the civil servants. He boycott. He didn't go to the village administrator office. So even though the military appointed the USDP person in the office, in the village office, the clerk, there is no clerk. He can't do anything. So that's what happened. So that's from the lowest level, the boycott, the administration boycott. It's also happening in the central level, the local government level. Many departments boycott. The doctors boycott, and no hospitals open, and also the military, railway workers boycott. No trains ran. So the regime is now very devastated, and they got they couldn't function. They couldn't function. That's why they're now killing us every day, because they couldn't function, and they got very angry, and they killed more people if we go outside because of the CDM success. And no trade anymore, no administration in the township, in the village, and also no services, like the no medical services, no municipal services. Municipal people, many municipal civil servants boycott them. So that's what the movement success.
Right. So you're saying that because more civil servants are not going to work and the normal functions of state are not being carried out, the military is responding with anger by killing more people that are in the streets. And what effect is that killing having? Is it on the civil servants and their boycott? Is it making some afraid to want to go back to work, or some that are at work to stay? Or is it having the opposite effect? Is it making people more resolute to stay home? Is it affecting more civil servants to boycott and join the CDM?
Exactly, they will join more CDM because they are now very scared of the regime, very um, yeah, discuss about the regime and how they kill our people. So even non-CDM people uh, start to talking to me, and they told me, is it too late to boycott? I told them, no, never late to boycott them. Just quick out of the office. So yeah, I give them advice like them. Like, yeah, every day they ask me about that.
So the killing that is now happening in the streets by the military who are killing these nonviolent protesters, this is actually having a byproduct of bringing more civil servants who initially didn't support CDM to now want to join it.
Yes, yes, it's definitely, yeah.
Right. That's interesting. So I've heard a lot of things about numbers, and I have a difficulty understanding them because I hear different reports in different places. We should mention that we're talking on March 17th, so by the time this airs, it will be quite different. But I've heard different things regarding the percentages of how many employees are currently doing CDM, as well as the target they're trying to get to of if this percentage is joining CDM, this will be the tipping point. This will be the point of no return where the regime really cannot succeed. What can you tell us approximately about where we're at in terms of percentages now and what percentage we're trying to get to?
It is different from departments to department. I cannot say like specifically. I mean, for example, like doctors and nurses and teachers, education, Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education, they are the highest CDM uh, civil servants. Like mostly, I think 100% CDM in this health and education. But for some department, like like this general administration department, um, they have the lower percentage of civil servants because this GAD, General Administration Department, Deputy Director or Deputy Director General or the DG or the Director, they all came from the military background. We have this saying called Moja Shriko. Moja Shriko, it means not from the civilian side, they came, their background, they got the training from the military, they joined the training, and then they transferred to the civilian side and they transferred to that general administration department to become the township administrator, district administrator. So these people, they accept the coup. They are happy because there's no more civilian government. So they are happy with that. So they control the civil servants. They are civil servants a lot. So in that department, the percentage is lower than the military, medical ministry, Ministry of Health or the education. That I can say like generally 70% or 80% of the Myanmar civil servants, yeah, joined the movement.
That's an incredibly high number. I can't even imagine what that must feel like being on the ground where 70 to 80% of the normal people who carry on the functions of state are now not working. What does it feel like to be living in a place day after day, week after week, where so many of these essential duties are simply frozen and not happening? Is it something that you can feel and that's perceptible just living day to
Mm,
day?
yeah, I mean, um, uh, I think, um, I mean, like municipal pension, municipal pensions are still okay, but I can see the like there are many municipal workers join the CDM movement. So, uh, in on our roads, in front of the house, usually there are like 10 or 20 15 municipal workers came every morning to sweep the roads, but now I can see only one person came in the morning, so you can see it. So there are some non-CDM people left and they are still working, so the services are still okay, but I don't know, I'm not sure when they collapse.
Right, and that leads to the next question is there an optimal number you're trying to get to? And I understand in talking to you that different departments have different functions and importance. They have different structures in terms of who might join, so it might not be just a single number across the board. But what can you tell us about the goals or the objectives of what I'm sure you're trying to get to 100%. I mean, of course, that's optimal. But is there a tipping point overall or by department where it really will be just too much for the state to be able to function with that many people out of work?
It's up to the people movement. So when the people go outside, like this day, Lantaya or South Dakota, they killed massively. So it's like mass killing happened there. So people were so scared and not to go to the office anymore. So how people reaction to the regime, I mean like this killing, and people got more hatred and people got more violence on the Facebook about this, about the non-CDM people, and non-CDM people feel very insecure and they drive more CDM movement. So it's the moment that we have to do, and we have to wait. But I'm not sure exactly how when the peak for not for this happen.
Right, right. So you're in a position where you're advising civil servants who are considering joining CDM, looking at the consequences, the legality, and then, of course, the protections and the sustenance that they and their families need. So when someone comes to you and they really do want to join CDM and they're prepared to face the consequences, very personal consequences, how do you support them? What resources do you try to provide to help them join the movement?
So usually I give them the travel allowance to leave their office. So mostly, the civil servants, I'm helping civil servants from Naypyidaw, and they have to go back to their hometown. So I provide them the travel allowance, and also uh, and also we have the emergency money fund, 50,000 for the civil servants for specific departments I work. For example, like the budget department or the general administration department or the commerce department. And so, like the specific departments work, civil servants, I have the fund for them. And some civil servants who have the emergency financial support, who needs the emergency financial support, we can also support them. Yeah, I raised the fund from my international friends and also my local friends, and we donate to them.
Right. You mentioned 50,000. Did you, to clarify, do you mean you have an emergency fund of $50,000 of donation that you've collected to be able to support them overall?
No, it's a 50,000 jet for every person we support.
So the 50,000 chat, that's the travel allowance that you give to go back to their hometown.
No, it's the emergency fund for the travel allowance. It depends on their hometown distance. So some people from Molamyai, Mon State to Myitkyina, I gave them like 200,000 jet.
So the emergency fund that you give them depends on their needs and where they have to go. And we should also take a moment to just do a little bit of currency conversion for those who don't know. 50,000 chat would be about $45. So you would give, is it correct to say that you would then give a civil servant who wants to leave their job, leave their office, leave their post, join the CDM movement, they would get a one time payment of $45 and maybe more if their needs were greater?
Yes, yes, yes. And then I collect the list and submit to the CRPH. This NLD government. They form the CRPH, committee representative. So I sent to them, and CRPH collect the list, and they they have the bigger fan. They will support this CDM stuff later, but in the meantime, we can give them the small amount, only just for their survival, uh, if they face any financial problem.
Right. So you're saying that if they want to join CDM, they would get a initial payment of $45 or maybe perhaps a little more. You mentioned 200,000 chat, which would be, I don't know, maybe $180 or something. with the idea that this would be money that can help them leave their office, likely in Naypyidaw, to their home village with their family. And then, as possible, they might get further support depending on their need and how much is available in donation at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Right. I think for people listening, those numbers just sound incredibly low, looking at having a job and a family and a home and everything else and picking up and moving that. I know that, of course, the economy and the living standards is different in Myanmar than other countries where people might be listening from. But I think listeners still might have a question of how someone is able to leave their home and life and take their family and and live and survive without any salary with such a low initial payment. Is that really possible for some families to be able to relocate with an initial payment of 45 or 100 or even $200 and to be able to wait this
I
out?
mean, there are many support groups, CDM support teams, so they can also ask for help from other teams if they need more assistance, and also we call the communities to help the people, to help the CDM people. So many communities are now helping them, like the monasteries, the monks are helping them, and also there are more, um, like the business tycoons, business people helping them, the CDM people. So not only me, my support, but also they can get other assistance too. But but yeah, this is in this short time we have to arrange it.
Right, right. And in addition to this concern about having a livelihood, having a job with promotions that these people have trained for all their lives, having a family to support and to be able to eat and medical bills and anything that comes, are these people that are joining the CDM movement, are they also putting their actual lives or safety or that of their family at risk by doing so?
As I mentioned before, it's mostly the Generation C civil servants, the younger generation, mostly the 25 years old civil servants, or the like yeah, the young generation civil servants. They join the movement, and there are also lower level staffs. For the higher level staffs, like the deputy director general or the director general, they didn't join the CDM. They have many things. They have many privileges. They don't join. But the lower level staffs, they join. The population is also their population is also the highest. The civil servants population, the lower levels are highest.
Right, right. And so with those deputies staying in place and just the younger Generation Z lower level workers starting to leave, is that enough, do you think? If enough of those lower level people leave, well, even if the deputies stay, is that enough to fulfill the objective
Yes,
of the mission?
of course, because this deputy they only give commands and instructions. They don't even type the computer themselves. The
Mm.
lower level types for them, so they don't know how to type. So yes, I really believe it. Yeah, the younger generation lived, and it's really good for them.
Right. And as this younger generation leaves and they have to forfeit this salary, are they also putting their safety or their lives at risk by doing
Yes,
so?
they face many problems and many challenges. Many, if there for this general administration department, many young administrators leave, and they got warranted. They released. They were warranted, and the regime, the police, they came every night to arrest them. To arrest them. So to, many people are now running. Many of us CDM people are now running. Many are hiding.
Right. Yeah. I see. And you're in the middle of being able to guide and assist and protect and sustain these people that are joining the movement. I think for a lot of our English language listeners that are overseas and are hearing this and have been following the story and have wanted to help in any way they can. Hearing this, I think there's probably a lot of listeners that are feeling desires or volitions to want to do what they can from the safety of their homes to support what you're doing there on the front lines. For people listening to this, how can they support what is happening right
I
now in the
mean,
movement?
we need international support, really. Yeah, we expect for 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 UN or the international communities to come inside to stop the regime, to kill the people. But it's very difficult. UN. We are very disappointed about the UN or their delay, and more people are dying. More and so we are very frustrated. So I think the international pressure is very important. And so I really want to request you all to put the pressure uh, from the international side to for this regime, and also to support the CDM staff. You can donate to many groups inside, and also to the CRPH too. They also have their website. You can also donate there too.
Right. And we should mention as well that we have recently started our own nonprofit here in the US, and that we do have a way to securely send funds and donations directly to Myanmar and to the CDM movement, including yourself. And that anyone listening to this who would like to support the work that you're doing, that a donation to our nonprofit would allow us to bring those funds directly into the country and to you personally to be able to help in your work with the people who want to leave CDM but need to be protected and need to have their families relocated and sustained through however long this will last.
Yes, yes, that's very important for us.
Right. So we've talked a bit about CDM and what you're doing to support those civil servants, but you're actually quite a busy and involved and dynamic person. You have your hands in a lot of different places. So, what else have you been doing during these last 5 weeks, and what other communities have you been in touch with?
um I mean, like, I got many requests to help them from different protest group, mostly the like I, I mean the small towns. Yeah, I also know the administrator from the small towns, and the small town administrators also boycott the CDM. And when they have the protest group, and they got killed, like for example, less 2 or 3 days ago, the Manyang township in middle region Burma, uh, near Pagan, the protest group got shot and 7 people killed. And the Myanmar administrator, he used to be my participant in my class, in my training. So he also joined the CDM movement, and then he asked me to help them. So we donated to the heroes, the fallen, the the victims. We donated to the victims, and also we donated to the injured people, like this town. And also I supported to the Naoglaba township protest group. They mostly I donated to the victims' family, and also the in-charge people. The in-charge people are also, they need the emergency, uh, the treatment costs. So I donated to them. Today I sent donation for Lang Daya township. Lang Daya is now under martial law, and like 30 people, not even 30, I think it's now 70 or 80 people were killed last 2 days. you know less within 2 or 3 days, 70 or 80 people were killed and also injured. There are many injured people, I think more than hundreds. So they need emergency help. And so I raise funds to send them medical things, but it's very difficult. All the roads are blocked. So yeah, we're working on that. Yeah, so this kind of thing, all this protest group and people suffer and they ask me for help to send them donation.
And how has that fundraising gone and that collecting donation? Are you collecting more inside or outside the country? And are you getting sufficient funds for what you need given how much need there is out there?
I mean, it's through my network. I mean, I cannot raise enough fund. I mean, because there are many people suffering, so they ask me many. I mean, like the problems are very huge, like different protester group. We also provide the safety equipment. We give donation to the victims, and also we give allowance, travel allowance to the CDM. We give money to the CDM, so all these activities go. So I need money all the time for all these activities. So
Mm.
yeah, I request my friends all the time, like international friends and also the local. For my local friends, mostly we use Facebook a lot, and I post a lot on Facebook, and people know me a, a lot, and people trust me, and they start donating me, so I can send money to them.
Right, and this is really becoming something like a war of attrition where both sides are trying to starve the other out. On the CDM side, you're trying to shut the government functions down so that the state is just not able to function. But on the other side, they're trying to starve out the morale and the funds that are coming in, the starving out the actual people that are involved by killing or harming or threatening or imprisoning them. And so at this point, funds and getting donations in is one of the most vital ways that this movement can be maintained because it's what allows the civil servants to leave their jobs. It's what allows protective equipment like gas masks and shields and sandbags to be attained by the protesters so they can protect themselves. And so, any amount of donation that can fund the movement to last another day is another ability of the movement to sustain itself. So, and in communities that I've been in contact with, you would know better than I would. So, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts and your contact with it. But I've definitely been in touch with communities, entire communities that are telling me that they're just a couple weeks away from being completely bankrupt. Actually, that they have used all of their funds, all of their personal belongings. Sometimes we've seen personal belongings like cars or other things that are really one's greatest investment that are being used as barricades and protective pieces themselves, and that some of these communities that I've been in touch with feel that they're only just weeks away from having no resources left. You would obviously know this better than I do. What is your sense of the how some of these communities are doing and what their needs
I
are?
feel the same way too. I feel very worried for this shortages, food shortages. uh, Now in Langtaya, they start to suffer shortages, and ask for the WFP to distribute food to them urgently. The food distributor even got killed. They shot the police shot the food distributor. So I think only the WFP can help the food distribution. So I call the WFP to do the food distribution. I think yeah, I do think we're going to suffer the shortages soon.
Right, and they're not just killing nonviolent protesters, they're also killing, people working in medical and food delivery and everything else. It's indiscriminate, so they're killing people that are just walking on the street or even just in their homes. There's no safety anywhere, so it's, and when you combine this with a lack of resources and funds, it becomes all the more serious and all the more critical to find a way to bring those funds in to be able to feed people, support them medically, and keep the movement going just another day, another week, as long as it can.
Yes, that's critical for us to help.
Yeah. So how about you personally? I mean, you're playing this critical role in being able to provide this support through your connections on one side of the civil servants, on the others of the international organizations and contexts that you have of being able to give the support that's needed. How are you doing personally? I can't imagine the emotional toll and personal stress that must be placed on you at this
Mhm.
moment.
I can't even express. It's like I got two counseling, and I do meditation like every day, every morning and every evening. And I got the therapeutic treatment by myself. I now because I got warrant, and police came and search me. Uh, and my parents cannot stay at home anymore, so we have to leave.
Oh,
Yeah, we have to leave. And
oh my God.
yeah, and I also got pressure from my parents. Why am I so involved? I told them it's like I have to do it. Otherwise, the civil servants, they are helpless. I need to help them, so I have to do this one, this movement. Yeah, and now it's like it's very pressure for me.
So your family home was invaded and searched, and if I understand correctly, you and your parents are now having to live in some other place?
Yeah, my parents live in another place. I live in other place. We close the house.
So you also have to take care of your own personal safety at this time as well. Well,
Yes, 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 yes. I'm worried like every day.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry hearing that. I do want to go back to you had mentioned your self therapy of meditation, meditating twice a day. Can you share a bit about what your meditation practice is and how that helps you?
Uh, it's I mean, during the COVID time, I mean, last year, we didn't. Mostly, I travel a lot because of my work. I stayed in Naypyidaw for civil servants work. Naypyidaw is the government city. I stayed in Naypyidaw, but last year I didn't go to Naypyidaw because of COVID, and we are working only online. And I started doing meditation practice last year, and I follow lady Buddhist way, lady monk way, uh, and also monk way. So yeah, just I follow this meditation practice, in I I I I do it. I mean, like I do it this day regularly, to release all my trauma. How can I say it's trauma? Yeah, all my suffering, all my suffering. Because the civil servants, they share their story to me. It's their stories are very traumatic. They share me how they got violences, they got shame. It's all affect me very deeply inside me. So I if I don't do the meditation, I can handle it. So I do it like every day, praying and meditation. And for the therapeutic, it's mostly like uh, aromatherapy. I got this all these scented candles, and I burn a lot all the time to make me relax, to focus. Otherwise, I cannot focus. I'm like shouting everybody. Like last month is very traumatic for me. Last month, so I can't cope, and so I cannot have a conversation easily. I'm very frustrated and shouting all the time. I'm very regretted because of my involvement, too much involvement in this movement. So it's like very very difficult for me. Less time, less month. So I need to take that therapy myself.
Right, I understand. So you were raised Burmese Buddhist, but it was your first real experience with meditation on a regular basis last year when COVID hit, or did you have a meditation practice before that?
Yeah, my first really um, commitment last year. When the COVID hit, it's, usually, I'm very busy and traveling, traveling all the time. I don't do meditation regularly. But last year, I stuck inside the house, no more travel anymore. So I have more time for meditation. So my commitment started from last year.
Right, I see. And you mentioned that you follow the teachings of Lady Sayadaw and Mogok Sayadaw. These are two of the great meditation monks in recent Burmese history. How do you devise your meditation practice? Do you have teachers within those traditions that have guided you in person or through contact, or are you just reading the books? Both, of course, both Lady and Mogok wrote extensive literature on theory as well as practice. So are you just reading the books and kind of devising your own practice based on what you read?
Mostly I listen to their speeches.
Ah,
They have the YouTube channel. So mostly Mogo Seattle YouTube channel. I listen to Mogo Seattle. And also my friend, she is a very, um, uh, she has long meditation experiences, like 20 years experiences of meditation. So she guide me how to do, you know. So I don't have proper monks teaching me. Like the Mogul Seattle teach me online. From the YouTube channel, but not like in person or outside. I went to the monastery or the
okay.
meditation center. Just only learning by myself.
Right, right. And what have you seen as the effects of starting a meditation practice both during COVID and now? How is that helping you to be able to manage the stress and the trauma of what you're experiencing?
It's a huge benefits for me. Like for my mind, for my um, uh, like I I can focus. I can concentrate properly now. Um, and also, for this trauma, trauma, uh, because last year I didn't suffer the trauma, so I just do meditation just for relaxing my mind, and also, to make more like Buddhist belief for my um, uh, nirvana. So to go to nirvana, I I have to do the meditation practice. So that's my belief last year for the meditation. But for now, I'm doing it. Not for that belief. That's my religious
Mm,
belief. But now for my health, my mental health,
mm.
my mental health is um, I need to do it to reduce my trauma, to my suffering. I'm like overwhelming with so many things, so I need to stop it.
I'm sure I can't begin to imagine. And are you finding with other people you're in contact with, are there others at this point that are kind of going back to the foundation of Buddhism or meditation or guidance from different monks or the scriptures and the suttas? Are you finding that Buddhism or meditation in any way is providing some kind of bedrock of support to others at this time as
Yeah.
well?
Many civil servants lady now go to monastery now. Like,
Mm,
yes, more praying. Yes, this day we have more praying.
mm. So are monasteries having different meditation courses and instruction at this time to support the
No, no, no,
people?
it's not like that. But like, it's like regular praying. But this day to make more calm and um, and more relaxed, because we face lots of trauma these days. So the religious thing is the only way we can hold on to pray.
Right. So you're seeing more people that you're in touch with, and you're in touch with quite a few people and all the work you're doing. You're seeing that as something that's happening more frequent these days is that people are falling back on some form of Buddhist practice for relief from the trauma and stress at this time.
Yes, yes, yes.
And yeah, in talking to you, I'm just kind of overwhelmed and in awe of everything you're holding right now. You know, the work that you've been doing for the 10 years and how you're now serving the people as a bridge in such a critical role in what you're doing, and also the personal impact that's having on you of your safety and your well-being and how you're taking care of yourself with therapy and meditation and doing what you need to do to be strong and safe and healthy. And we will continue to use this platform for your voice and those of others to get the word out about what's happening as much to our ability. And, you know, I just so thank you for taking the time. I know it's getting near 1 a.m. in Myanmar. Internet's about to be shut off. You've had a really long, stressful day and you'll have one tomorrow. And to take the time to share with us personally and the public things that you're doing, you know, I just really, really thank you for that.
Thank you so much also for um, asking me these questions. I'm happy, I think I cannot focus on the questions, but I'm happy I can focus on your questions and your talks. I can answer you. This is my first interview for the international.
Well, you've done great. I mean, just look at it as a conversation that happened to be recorded, and I think you've just done great. You've been honest, you've been vulnerable, you've shared what you've known, and I've learned a lot. I think everyone listening has as well.
Yeah, yeah. Because I can hold the conversations for a long time. Like this one is really long for me, so I'm very happy. I'm glad I can do that. I can do this interview.
As inspiring as it was to hear today's guest, I know from experience that when you're listening from so far away, there can also be a certain kind of helplessness in hearing about the struggle that people like them are now engaged in. Thankfully, we have organized a reliable way for interested listeners to provide valuable assistance to those local communities. All donations will be sent to support the protesters currently resisting the military coup. By taking an active role in helping support the movement, you can ensure that people like today's speaker have even a few more resources to draw on and can manage even another week more in their efforts. If you would like to join in our mission to support those in Myanmar who are resisting the military coup, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Every cent goes immediately and directly to funding those local communities who need it most. Donations go to support such causes as the Civil Disobedience Movement, CDM, families of deceased victims, and the purchasing of protective equipment and medical supplies. Or if you prefer, you can earmark your donation to go directly to the guest you just heard on today's show. In order to facilitate this donation work, we have registered a new nonprofit called Better Burma for this express purpose. Any donation you give on our Insight Myanmar website is now directed to this fund. Alternatively, you can visit our new Better Burma website, which is betterburma.org, and donate directly there. In either case, your donation goes to the same cause, and both websites accept credit cards. You can also give via PayPal by going to paypal.me/betterburma. Additionally, we can take donations through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. Simply search Better Burma on each platform and you'll find our account. You can also visit either website for specific links to those respective accounts or email us at info@betterburma.org. In all cases, that's Better Burma, one word, spelled BetterBurma. If you would like to give in another way, please contact us. Thank you so much for your kind consideration. You've been listening to the Insight Myanmar podcast. We'd appreciate it very much if you could rate, review, and/or share this podcast. Every little bit of feedback helps. You can also subscribe to the Insight Myanmar podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. If you can't find our feed on your podcast player, please just let us know and we'll ensure it can be offered there in the future. Also, make sure to check out our website for a list of our complete episodes, including additional text, videos, and other information available at insightmyanmar.org. And I also invite you to take a look at our new nonprofit organization at betterburma.org. There was certainly a lot to talk about in this episode, and we'd like to encourage listeners to keep the discussion going. Make a post, request specific questions, and join in on discussions currently going on the Insight Myanmar podcast Facebook group. You're also most welcome to follow our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts by the same name. If you're not on social media, feel free to message us directly at info@insightmyanmar.org. Or if you'd like to start up a discussion group on another platform, let us know and we can share that forum here. Finally, we're open to suggestions about guests or topics for future episodes. So if you have someone or something in mind, please do be in touch. We would like to take this time to thank everyone who made this podcast possible. Currently, our team consists of 2 sound engineers, Mike Bink and Martin Combs. There's of course Zach Hessler, content collaborator and part-time co-host. Ken Pransky helps with editing, and a special Mongolian volunteer who is asked to remain anonymous does our social media templates. In light of the ongoing crisis in Myanmar, a number of volunteers have stepped in to lend a hand as well, and so we'd like to take this time to appreciate their effort in our time of need. And we're always on the lookout for more volunteers during this critical time, so if you'd like to contribute, definitely let us know. We'd also like to thank everyone who has assisted us in arranging for the guests we've interviewed so far. And of course, we send a big thank you to the guests themselves for agreeing to come on and share such personal, powerful stories. Finally, we're immensely grateful for the donors who made this entire thing possible. We want to remind our listeners that the opinions expressed by our guests are their own and don't necessarily reflect the host or other podcast contributors. Please also note that as we are mainly a volunteer team, we do not have the capacity to fact-check our guest interviews. By virtue of being invited on our show, there's a trust that they will be truthful and not misrepresent themselves or others. If you have any concerns about the statements made on this or other shows, please contact us. This recording is the exclusive right of Insight Myanmar podcast and may not be used without the expressed written permission of the podcast owner, which includes video, audio, written transcripts, or excerpts of any episodes. Also not meant to be used for commercial purposes. On the other hand, we're very open to collaboration, so if you have a particular idea in mind for sharing any of our podcasts or podcast-related information, please feel free to contact us with your proposal. If you would like to support our mission, we welcome your contribution. During this time of crisis, all donations now go towards supporting the protest movement in Myanmar through our new nonprofit, Better Burma. You may give by searching Better Burma on PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, GoFundMe, and Patreon, as well as via credit card at betterburma.org/donation. You can also give right on our Insight Myanmar website, as all donations given there are directed towards the same fund. And with that, we're off to work on the next show, so see you next episode.